Cool.
It was weird. There were a
Live
bunch of
stream.
people showing attending, and now they're not. That's weird.
Yeah, I saw that.
There they come. Well, we had that email issue, and so what we're going to do is just whenever we get this, we'll send this back out to everybody that normally would get it whenever that gets cleared up.
Yeah.
So, hi everybody,
Yeah.
welcome. Come on
Hey,
in.
it happens.
Hmm.
It happens. Uh, so I don't know if I keep saying this every week. I don't think I do, but someone's like, "Hey, wow, you got a mic." Well, I met with someone this week. You got a microphone and like the background and all that stuff. I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Don't get too excited." I used to be in my dining room, so I'm
Yeah,
not hot stuff.
yeah,
I like
yeah.
telling that story, man. I like telling that
Oh
story.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Oh,
tell you guys a funny story. I feel since everybody
I
welcome
want to hear
to
it.
the webinar, the HJ webinar. We're giving our guest just a couple of minutes. I know she'll be here. Really excited to have Jan Peary. We're going to talk about this. It's a great topic, but
Yeah,
while we're waiting, I'll just tell you all a funny story. So
I want to hear it.
whenever everything shut down for COVID, I got in. There was nothing going on. I was invited by some friends of mine to all across the country. I got involved. Somebody asked me, said, "Hey, we're going to do this thing it's called Whiskey Chat. We're going to get online. We're going to get on Facebook. We're going to
Remember
stream it
that?
live. We're going to drink some whiskey. We're going to bring some distillers in. We're going to talk about it and raise some money."
That's actually pretty
And I was
cool.
like, "Okay, sounds good." And I thought I thought I was doing okay, with my deal, and I didn't have a screen, just regular camera. And a guy was on there that I've become friends with, but I didn't know him at the time, and he had this whole setup, and I was like, "Wow,
I need that.
I got to get my game face going." My deal.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah, yeah.
mean, I immediately went in to get the studio set up mode, and obviously this is a different one than I used to have whenever I was at my house, but it was pretty cool because that was one of the things I think that came out of that is we all learned how to do this a lot better. I mean, it came out of
Hmm.
this. I mean, we started doing the HJ webinar, and now we're 170 some episodes, so it's been kind of cool.
We stopped calling it the number. I don't know if that's good or bad. We stopped saying the title with the number every time. Interesting. I just keep telling folks the reality, it's 3 years and we haven't missed very many weeks.
No,
Thanksgiving,
we haven't
Christmas,
consistency. And it's funny because
Independence Day,
part of
everything.
what I know Jan's going to talk about is consistency and consistency over time and what that does for fundraising. Um,
Thanks everybody for
guys,
being patient. We're gonna
I'm
give.
going to pop off just for a second, make a call, just make sure she's got the instructions to get on real quick. I'll
Okay,
be right
cool.
back. Or
Nice.
do you have her
Well,
number, Bailey? Will you give her a call?
I don't believe I have her number if
I've
you
got
want.
it. I'll be right back, you guys, and we'll do
I'll
this.
tell a story,
Thank
Jay.
you
I'll
for your
tell another
patience. Yeah,
story. Yeah.
tell them a great
Well, I
story.
got a fun one. You know this one already, but so really cool story. Jason and I, because I'm in Northern California and Jason's in Oklahoma, in Edmond, Oklahoma, so we're meeting on Zoom a lot, and so I've got this standing desk because I think I'm cool, standing up all the time working, and it's the greatest thing ever, right? And then I just finally like I'm working so much, I'm just kind of tired of standing, so I buy this cheap stool from with a little back on it from Walmart and put it together in my office. And so when I'm tired of standing at the standing desk with the laptop and all that stuff, I've got the cheap stool. Well, the cheap stool was cheap. I think we put it together just fine, but it was from Walmart. And Jason and I are talking on a Zoom, and all of a sudden the back of the stool completely breaks. and and I went flying backwards. And Jason tells us I just disappeared. I just wasn't there. And you can just hear crashing in my office. And it's before I went home to work for a couple of years, but it was my old office. And what was crazy is like I like broke my fall and my neck, and it was a pretty dramatic fall, like where I had whiplash the next day with a sore neck and everything from yeah, from the stool. That was another Zoom blooper that we had when we first got going. But I see some new names. I see some names that I recognize and some new names. So thanks everybody for coming. Really, really appreciate it. We talk about Jan. Hopefully, Jason. Hopefully, there's nothing wrong. Jan knew that we were here at this time. Jan Peary is an expert in relationships and cultivating major donors over time. And there are very, very few times when we don't talk about Jan and like, and like the prowess that she has and the donors
Mhm.
and what have you that she's cultivated over
She's on her
time.
way. She's on her
Okay,
way.
cool.
So that was
Cool.
a yeah.
You wanna tear up just a little bit, Jay, and just kind of
Yeah,
talk
well,
about
I
like what
think you
your
were doing a
content.
really good job. I
Yeah.
think here's the thing that know
Well,
about Jan.
we always tell stories about her, man. That's
Yeah,
the
well,
thing.
let's do a little cleanup first. That way we just get this out of the
Okay,
way.
cool.
Hey,
Yep.
you know what? State of the end and win. We're gonna give
Yep.
something away, and we
Yep.
appreciate you being here. We do this every week.
Yep.
My name's Jason Ledlow, HJ Fundraising. Trevor Nelson, HJ Fundraising, and we help nonprofits raise more money, and we have the most affordable auction items in the nonprofit fundraising space. And so, if we can help you there, we do free coaching, this webinar. So anytime throughout this period, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask us. Jan is coming. She's on her way. So that was
Cool.
a glitch on our side. We had an email change with a brand new website we did, and she's probably here.
Some
And
tech,
it had a change with some of our emails outsend. So normally we have, and we know we knew this would potentially be an issue, and it was with this one thing. So we know we've had a little glitch. So, but guess what? We're still going to be here. We're going to give great content. So we appreciate you guys doing
I
this.
want to ask a favor as well. If anyone's watching this as recording on YouTube at any time on YouTube, do us a favor, and you can check out our entire catalog of content and different subject matter. Do us a favor and subscribe. We're growing that subscriber list on YouTube, and it would mean a lot to us if you would subscribe. You can, of course, ask any questions, leave us a comment. You know, tell us about different subjects you'd like to hear about and things like that. And you can do that all on YouTube in the comments section. But like I said, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you. So,
Yeah.
we're talking about long-term relationships and how that happens. And I think, and that's why we invited Jan, because,
Yeah.
it is
One of
all
the
about
best.
relationships.
Yep.
Everything that we do is about relationships.
It's your
It is,
superpower.
it is not about, oh shoot, hold on a second. She just called me. Just give me a second.
I'm going to go ahead and piggyback on what Jason was saying because I say this all the time. You have a superpower. I don't know if everyone knows this or not. The sooner that you lean into it and realize that it really is your superpower, the better. And that is your relationships. Relationships are your true superpower, especially, hi, Jan,
Hey, how are
especially if you're in
you?
fundraising. Really well. It's nice to see you again.
Sorry, I'm a little late joining the game. Couldn't quite get
Well,
on.
Don't
I already took the demerits for it. You're
don't be
okay. I
sorry.
told them
Yeah,
everybody it was
everything's
my
great.
fault. So,
Yep.
gosh, I'm so glad to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Oh yeah.
Oh
So,
wow, that's a great question.
yeah,
Wow, Claire, right off the bat. Hey everybody, keep the questions coming. Do us a favor. This is
yeah,
a very interactive webinar, Q&A function, chat, everything's right there. It's really, really great. Appreciate that question, Claire.
yeah.
And we'll get right to it. But Jay, I want you to introduce Jan if you
So it is my pleasure to bring to you somebody who I think a lot of. I've been around this fundraising game for over 30 years, and she is special. And it's really special because this is her last time probably to ever come on here as an active CEO of the organization that she has served for, I think, 25 years
Well,
in
I've
total.
been here 27 and been CEO over 20.
Yeah.
Wow, it's
So,
awesome, Jan.
and I'm going to tell you
Congrats.
whenever and I'm going to tell you some stuff because I want to tell you about why I wanted Jan here. So when Jan started with the organization, I think as CEO, it was $1 million organization. They're over a $5 million annual revenue. They raise a lot of money. And the things that she's done and the relationships that she's built have been key to this. And what I want to talk about too is the relationships with the organization. And I think that's really key because obviously Jan has, and I know this because like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and she's so good and so precise, specific, and she's intentional about it because whenever she has relationships, and literally she picks up the phone and makes a phone call and says, "Hey, we've got to do this. We did a sponsorship on a golden ticket." She goes, "I got people I'm going to call." She called 2 people, got it sponsored. The first time they go, "Sure, Jan, whatever you want."
Yeah.
That is what these long-term playing the long game, there's relationships, because I can tell you that wasn't the first time she'd ever talked to him. And I've used
Work.
this, and Jan, I'm saying this because, you know, you're leading the organization way better than you came to it. And I know everybody's really, you know, when some this happens, it's a wonderful thing for you because, like I said, you know, you've earned this time to go
Put
do
in your
things. I know,
time.
and
Yeah.
and so everybody, you know, I know that
Flash.
she's a big gardener and she really likes to have her flowers in her garden and all that kind of stuff. And
Nice.
we've kind of got a side bet how long that lasts before she says, okay, I got to be doing something. So, but I want to say one of the things that I know about Jan is like I said, that relationship and how you do that over time. So so Jan, thank you so much for being here to spend this time with us. And you know, would you just kind of just give us your you know, your overall thought about building relationships in the fundraising for the long term? And I think this is going to get Claire's question about, you know, how to repair dwindling relationships with long-term donors and lapsed
Great
donors.
question, though.
So,
Yeah.
Um, to answer her question, number one, I think you start from scratch. You treat them as if they're a brand new donor. I think so many times when somebody is new, we're more intentional on that communication and the thank yous and all of that. I think the longer it goes, sometimes it's real easy to be complacent and not worry as much, regardless of what the situation is. If it's a company and you're their customer, they're doing more to attract new customers and what can we offer you than to really make sure their current ones oftentimes are staying satisfied. And it's the same thing with building support in a nonprofit and with your donors. I think two things to me are key. Number one is make it personal. Make those personal phone calls, go see them if possible. What can you do personal, but also along the way, make sure that you are building that relationship based on not just you and the donor, but the donor and the organization. And I think that's one of the things I've tried to reiterate all along my journey. But as I've been leaving and going and meeting with donors, that's been the feedback is absolutely, we support you, but we support your work. So I feel like I've done that job along the way. So many times you see people leave a field, whatever it is, but especially in a field that takes donors or volunteers, and that one person leaves, and all the people that they've built relationship with leaves as well. That says you're not building it with the organization or
Yeah.
the work, you're building it with you. And it has to be dual. If you're really doing what's best for an organization, you have to have that dual intention as you're building those relationships. And I think that's been key because I've helped donors make sure they understand this is what you're doing and this is why it's critical. And so it's easier to ask them to help when you need to, but you're also thanking them along the way. And I think all those are critical. Sometimes I don't think about what I'm doing. It's just a natural, somebody does something, I'll send them a thank you note. And I had Carol Stoops one time, and I'll name her. I don't think she would. She's been a longtime friend and supporter of this work. And at an event she was speaking at, she talked about, Jan's always sending me these little notes. I just got one today. And, she sat there talking. It was basically something we should all do in our daily lives is just thank people for their kindness, their generosity, whatever those steps are. We don't do enough of that.
So
So
Jan,
good.
something we've been a proponent of, and we talk about a lot whenever we're doing our coaching sessions and things about having what we call a planned gratitude. You know, this is a planned gratitude. We're going to specifically go and thank people and go through this and do that. And one of the things that I always talk, I'm like, go take your, spread things out, go to if you don't know where to start somewhere, take your top 10 donors and have the CEO call them. Take your, the next 10 and have maybe the director and then split the rest have the board call them, do that kind of stuff and just say, thank you. So do you guys do that? Do you recommend that? Or what are some maybe best practices that you personally have seen over the years that have developed that really help that to be specific? Like you said, it's almost comes natural to you, so you don't have to think about it because you've done it for so long. But let's say somebody that's really kind of new in the space, or like, Claire, who's saying, I really want to, how do I get this thing going? We don't have planned gratitude. What do we need to do? What are some things you think about?
I think
Great
the
question.
first thing that not everybody does, and we did not, it was one of the first things I changed here, was getting out that first thank you immediately. So somebody sends you a check or they've been to an event and they get that get that thank you letter out right now.
Mhm.
Don't wait 2 weeks down the road. What is the process? And, we have some events, we have 800 people and
Yeah.
their individual gifts at this event. And so that's
Mhm.
800 letters.
Yeah.
Getting those out immediately, making sure that when you're sending them, you have the name right.
Mm.
Uh,
Detail. Yeah.
that is a huge thing. I've gotten letters from the university where I graduated, and when I'd given a gift, I'd given it on a check that has mine and my husband's name, and they were doing a phone-a-thon, and they called, and I answered the phone, but guess who it was they were asking for? My husband. It's like, really, I'm the alum, I'm the one that gave the check. You should know that when you're making the call. So
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
sure that you know who that person is. Uh, Doing things to get to know. If my name is Janet, but I go by Jan most of the time, and you're a personal friend, or you know me and talk to me as Jan, call me Jan in the letter. Don't leave
Yeah.
that more formal title. Doing things in the letter, like, if they're set up. I will go back. My training many, many years ago said, that if somebody gives you a gift, they are now a friend. So you call them by their first name. Now, I had mentors when I first started who were some people my age, and it's like, oh, well, older people don't like to be called by their first name. It's Mr. and Mrs. If I know them as a friend, I don't call them Mrs. or
Right.
Mr. I call them by their first name.
Yeah.
So while the letter may say that, I will write a handwritten note. And some people I see will mark that out because it's in there. I don't. I have them change the letter so it has that first name. But I will
Awesome.
address them by their names in a small note. Just, I sign everything personally. I think that's very important. Uh, if somebody's given me, I don't care if it's $5, they deserve me to take time to sign my name to say thank you.
Well, there's something that you do. I'm gonna point out because you brought
I
this
have
up.
so many things swirling in my head right now. It's awesome.
There's something that I've seen you do that you took the formal letter that was printed out, written out, set up and everything, did the deal. And then because you sent one to me, and that's why I know that you do this, and you scratch this out. Jason, thank you so much. We couldn't have done it without, it was something very sweet and very
Yeah.
nice. And doing that, you know, Jan, and you sign it that way. And let me tell you, that right there, that personal, does it take time? Yes. Do you have to be intentional? Absolutely. But holy cow, again, whenever I talk
Personal.
about her, I talk about because these are the things that I know that Jan brings to the table that she does that I get inspired by because, I talk to nonprofits every day all across the country, coast to coast. That's what we do. Been doing this for a long time. And that little thing, it's amazing how much that means to somebody because it meant a lot to me. And I'm probably jaded to a lot of the stuff because I see it all the time, but I'm not when I get that because it was intentional. And I think that was the part that you're saying. I hear you saying being intentional with this gratitude.
I also think when you're doing things like letters, it may be a Mr. and Mrs. And maybe the husband is who gave the check, but their both names are on that check. I look to find what is her name too, and I'll say, thank you,
Yeah, I know
Janet
you
Gray,
do.
instead of, and I think personal. And I think again, developing those relationships and building them, we have to look at them as if we would in anything in our life. Be intentional. If you have a friend that you don't see him for 5 years, you're going to say hi and all, but you lose a lot of contact there. With a donor, you're not only losing that contact, but you've got a lot of other agencies that are working to build those relationships. So you
Yeah.
get left along the sidelines. You might get that, okay, I can give you a few $100 with somebody that could give you several thousand because somebody else is doing a whole lot more thank yous and a lot more just intentional conversation to say, this is what's going on. This is what
Yeah.
we're doing. And I think those things have to happen along the way. Then we also do, so we have monthly donors and we do small gifts along the way. We do a donorversary gift. So something small. I've had so many donors tell me, don't spend our money on gifts for us. And so we do something, but we always do something small. It may be artwork that our children in the shelter have done. And we copy that and make a picture out of it. or just something very small that it's obvious we haven't spent a lot of money in, but the message in it, whatever it is, does say
Mhm.
thank you and shows that we're trying to be
I love it.
thoughtful in that process.
Awesome.
Jan, while we're talking about this and this being intentional, talk to us about how you tie the mission back to the work that's being done and the dollars that are being given. I think that's one of the things that, we say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the gift. But I think tying it to the mission is where the emotional, and you tell me if you agree with this. So I always say, people, and let's talk about people that have significant capacity to give, because obviously everybody, it doesn't matter whether they give, $10 or 10,000, it still all makes the mission happen, and we want to address all those. But people that have significant capacity to give were typically thoughtful, and they were smart how they made the money, they're smart how they keep it, and they're smart how they invest it, and they're also smart how they give it away. And if they're investing money, they want to get a return, a monetary return. But when they give money away, they're looking for a return, and it's an emotional return. That's what they are, and that emotional return, because they know where the money went, they understand what it did. That this helped us support. This money supported 10 women in the shelter for an entire year, or whatever that depends on the size of the gift, whatever it was. That means a lot, and I think so. Tell me how you see that, how you communicate that, and what your thoughts are of that.
We do that probably almost in reverse. So we try to give them that information up front. If you get this, this is what it can help do, and give them some options and arrange. This will do this and this will do this. So by the time they've done it, they've selected that option and they've got that information. So I'm usually saying, thank you. You made an investment in helping us save lives.
Mhm.
That's probably, I've used that phrase, I think, so many times, but
Awesome.
repeating it, because that is true. They are
Mhm.
truly investing in helping us save lives. And it
Yes.
makes a
That's the
difference.
reality.
Or, this makes a difference for us and for those we serve. So I don't do as much of the dollar value to what they've done. After the fact, we do more of it in trying to cultivate and make the ask.
Love it.
So that's what I mean. So after the fact, you're saying you save lives, but before the fact, you actually do that way, which I completely agree with that. So speaking of that cultivation, and like I said, I want to make sure we've got a question. I'm going to make sure if your question's on there, I promise you we'll get to it. I promise. And if you've got any more, we'll get to them. I guarantee you. So I'm going to kind of go back to what Claire said. How do I get these relationships changed, or how do I get those long-term donors? And there's a
I love
story.
Jan's answer. I love
There's
Jan's
a
answer.
story that you tell that I retell. I always say, let me give you an example about
Basically weekly, Jan, just so you know, we
persistence. Yeah,
tell the story. Yeah.
I say it all the time
We
because
tell the story all the time.
it's a good story.
It's a
It's
great
always
story.
better in the retelling too. So we're going to get the real version, because I probably have changed it, maybe
That's awesome.
little poetic license. But
That's awesome.
you talked about there was somebody who you met with and pursued and talked to for about 5 years, I think the number was. And the first time that they came over and made a gift, it was significant. Would you share, maybe, I know you have more than one, so would you kind of share that about how that has happened and how you do that, and to give encouragement to whoever's listening to say, this is a long game. We're playing the long game. Yeah, you got to raise money today, but we've got to cultivate those future gifts as well.
Well, and I'll be honest with this, if it's the family I'm thinking of, I really, at the time when I first met them, did not know what the full capacity was for giving.
Yeah.
But I met them, they wanted to help, took them on a tour, and asked for a gift. And they gave me a gift we were doing our capital campaign. No, it wasn't, it was before that. They gave me a really good gift, nice gift. For me at the time, we had almost no major donors. So
Yeah.
in my early years. And then they said, well, what else can we do? And I should have had those numbers in my head. I should have had the what ifs, but I was so stunned at the time to get that. And I said, well, we just found out we have to put up a new fence. And he said, what's that going to cost? And it's be $13,000. So then they wrote me a $13,000 check. So I was really stunned. So I continued. I would touch base with him. How's it going? He had told me in the beginning, she was really the one that her heart was really with what we did. And at one point, he he told me that they were going to leave us in their will. So I kept contact with them as much as I could. And then she died, and I was no longer able to make contact with her. And it wasn't continual gifts. There really weren't. There were some small gifts along the way, and that was it. But several years after I lost contact with them, we were notified they left us a gift of $800,000 in their will.
Wow.
Um, so again, it was that, it really was the gratitude, letting them know how thankful I was. I'm sure they could feel it in the room at the time when they gave me that check. I was, that
Yeah.
was so exciting to be able to get that. But it was really just going back. I visited with them. I'd call and say, hey, you got time for coffee? And it wasn't just to make a gift, just ask for a gift. It was cultivating and letting them know how things are going, because you might give them a gift and they might believe you're doing good with that gift, but what else is going on in the organization? Just give me an update of what's happening. And that's really what I did with that couple just for a few years before. I'm pretty sure what happened was he went into hospice, and
Yeah.
after she died, and that's where I lost contact. But it had been enough in a short period of time that they did put us in their will.
Oh, great. Sounds like y'all became friends.
Mm.
Yes,
Is it okay if I say that? You always kept them up to date with what you're doing because they cared. That
yes,
was your common bond,
yes,
obviously.
yes.
But it just sounds like you treated them like friends.
And I think that's the key is
Yeah,
I think we lose, number one, in our society, we lose that personal contact so much
agreed.
all the time with everybody.
Agreed.
And
Hmm.
we're so busy in our daily lives, we forget to touch base with those that are important to us. We're reminded of that. People talk about, oh, don't forget, touch base with the people in your life, tell them you love them. We
Yeah.
don't we don't think about that same philosophy and apply it in our work.
Yeah.
We need to tell those people the same thing. Thank you, we appreciate you. And to know that they could be given their money and their time and their talent anywhere, but they
Yeah.
chose to give it to you. And so making sure that they know you appreciate it. And by also doing that and telling them what else is going on, they may decide there's something else they're interested in.
Yeah.
And oh, well, tell me more about that. And next thing you know, you have another gift.
Yeah.
Another way to support you.
I I just think so much of what you said though, Jan, and you're talking about, how you treat your relationships in your daily life. And then you mentioned other agencies and the reality that there are other agencies competing for those dollars, even with folks that have tremendous capacity. But everything that you say just sounds like you're just different than the other agencies, that you're just operating. It could be that simple. It's just like, I know there's a good chance they're not signing, and I didn't ask you if you did or not, hand signing 800 letters because you had 800 attendees,
I
or
do.
I know, yeah, listen, there's probably not a lot of people that invest that kind of time in doing that. And I'm telling everyone that will listen, and I know it's coming from you, but Jason and I are just spreading this as much as far as we can, and we talk about it as often as possible. It's different, and people respond to that. It's not old school. It's not super competitive. It's different, and it's heartfelt, and it sounds like I said at the onset, it sounds like you're truly trying to build relationships, but these people are becoming friends. And if it's not difficult for you to make friends, if it wasn't difficult in the schoolyard, if it's not difficult in your, adult life, I mean, that's really a great way, to approach it, it sounds like. And I just love the differentiation. I think it's
But
awesome.
even if it's hard to maybe make friends, maybe if you do that.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
So, most people look at me and think I'm an extrovert. In reality, Myers-Briggs tell me I come closest to center on extrovert, introvert than I do on anything else. Everything else is out here.
Yeah.
But what I do is I force myself to do some things that help overcome that. So if I go into, I'll say Chamber of Commerce. When I first started going to the Chamber of Commerce, I'm this little $1 million nonprofit. They could care less. I'm with what I call the suits in the city. They're all these powerful people that are running our city and know everything and know everybody, and millions of dollars they're dealing with. They could care less who I was, and I really didn't know anybody. I'd go into this room and I could just, it's like, oh my gosh, I hate walking into a room with people I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'll find Jason, just get to talk to Jason a little bit, introduce him to me. And then the next time I go, well, I know Jason, now I can meet Trevor too. Or Jason might say, hey, Jan, let me introduce you to. And the next thing you know, you've begun to build a circle of acquaintances that
Hmm.
you can build into circles of influence. And those steps have made huge impact in those, especially in those beginning years. Going to things like the Chamber of Commerce overnight, trips, intercity trip. And in that first couple of years, we did not have the money to do that. But I looked at who else was going to be there and thought, we don't have the money not to do it.
Yeah.
So going on that small trip, it's a smaller group. It's more intentional, more one-on-one than going to this huge, 1,000 attendee breakfast or lunch. And you get to meet those conversations. I can tell you one of those alone that I met doing that, one of those key people and leaders in the city, got to know a little bit more. Next thing you know, I got a $35,000 grant from the entity that he was working with. Next thing you know, we got that for numerous years until they quit giving. They didn't just quit giving here, they kind of dissolved what they were doing. But that was just that getting to know, just having a conversation. If you're passionate about the work that you do, it's easy to talk about that.
Good call.
And I would say most people have told me when someone asks me why they give or what it is about me why they give, is because of the passion for the work. And
Yeah.
if you don't have passion for the work, you're in the wrong line. You're in the wrong, either don't need to be a nonprofit or you don't need to be at the company that you're at. You need to believe in and be passionate about that work. Then it makes the asks and the relationship building very easy.
Well, it takes the hooks out, takes the pressure off, right?
It
I
really
mean,
does.
yeah, it's awesome.
Jan, can I
Love that.
I'm gonna have you expand on that just a little bit because I think this is something, and talking and coaching with working with nonprofits, and whenever we talk to them, the first thing I always ask somebody when we do a coaching session is I always say, "Tell me what you do in 10 words or less." And I said, "Look, this," and ultimately I said, like I say, if I meet somebody, go, "Hey, Jason, what do you do?" "I help nonprofits raise more money." That's all I say. I don't say anything else because I want to start a conversation with them, not throw up on them. Now I could speak for 20 minutes about what we do and not let them take a breath, not take a breath. But what I want to do is have a conversation. And I see a lot of times what happens with nonprofit, we're so excited to talk to somebody that it just all comes out. And it's like, just slow down. You don't have to tell them everything because sometimes when I tell people, "Oh, I help nonprofits raise more money," they go, "Oh, okay." And then other times they go, "Well, tell me more about that."
Well, that sounds fun.
And
Yeah.
and then it becomes a conversation, not
Right.
a presentation.
Right.
And so would you speak to that about the importance of what you're saying about building a relationship of a conversation versus a presentation?
Hmm.
And I'm probably not the best example of that because I work really hard at not giving the whole story.
Yeah.
Um, I have to work hard at that. But I will tell people, we provide services for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault and stalking. And that is vital in Oklahoma. If you're ever interested, I can tell you why, as a business leader or whatever their role is, why this is important to you. And if they say, okay, fine, one of these days we'll talk about it, then you have to maybe know it's not time, bless and release. Or then you've opened the opportunity for them to ask you more about it. And I always feel like I have to be careful and throw that part of it in so that there's not an assumption if they happen to be a victim or a perpetrator, that they don't throw a wall up or get defensive or protective.
Yeah.
So I do it in the sense that this is why we do, and it's important in Oklahoma. And this is
Yeah.
why it could be important to you. That's my excuse anyway. No, that I do believe that's been very important. And those conversations are really what we've done. Even our luncheons, Jason, I think you've been to those.
Hmm.
Really, it's not a conversation, but it is. It's a 1 hour event telling you this is what we do from somebody in your position. So our men's luncheon is a man talking to men about why this is important, or women and why this is important to you, and trying to find people who the people in that room can identify with. So it feels like more of a conversation, me giving you the information. Why it's a one-sided conversation, it has more of that kind of a feel. And I think that's important. people don't understand these issues and they don't know, but it has brought so many people into the fold because people in that room, we know in our field, 1 in 4 women are going to be an impact, possibly 1 in 3, depending on which study you're looking at.
Yeah.
Somebody sitting at that table has never told anybody else. I can't tell you how many times after somebody, there's a whole table sitting there, what they've begun to share with each other their experience. So now all of a sudden you have 10 people who maybe came to a luncheon, but now they know a personal connection and are very vested,
Yeah.
or get help. So I think it's, again, strategic, and my background in early on in training says, oh, events we talk about as fundraisers, they really aren't. People come, they give their money and leave. We can see from our events, we've built who we are now based from coming from those events. Many of our board, our volunteers, and our donors have come from those events. Now, do we transition as many as we'd like to from donor and attendee to longtime donor? No, probably not, but we also see many of them returning and giving again. And they'll come back to the event. It's not
Oh,
just
yeah.
an invite. But I think that's another whole area to explore and how to make those transitions.
Love it.
I've made her wait. I want to get to Lori's question.
Yeah, Lori's got a
Made
great question.
because I want to come back to where you're doing, because I really think this is important. Because one thing I want to just point out, it's your mission. You know, Jan's talking about her specific mission, but you can do this with your mission. And what you're going to find is you're going to go down the road and somebody's going to go, oh, okay, nice to meet you, and they're going to move on, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because what you're trying to do is build a relationship and do that. Or, you know, and you may talk to somebody, they may do that going, hey, you need to talk to Joe. You need to talk to Trevor. Trevor and just because, you know, I know Trevor would have a connection to this and with your mission. And that's where this networking, these relationships come from. You know, and one of the things that I think that is a huge, I'm going to say, what I want to encourage you to do. You know, I used to say, we've all got a phone. We're all walking around with this. When you get somebody and you meet somebody, you don't have to sit there and go, hey, can I get your number? But write their name down, make a note. You could do it really fast as soon as you meet them. Go over there and go, Jan Peary, President, CEO of YWCA OKC. That's all I got to do. I can find her from there, but I'm just wanting to keep that remember that person that I talked to. And I think, you know, I used to walk around with a little pad and a paper in my deal, and I'd write that down because I want to remember something, because I can't remember everything at all. And so I can't remember everything, so I don't remember anything. But it's amazing how you do that, and you go back and you go, wow, there's 5 people that I talked to. I got, you know, a president and CEO of a large organization. I got this person over here, this. And then you find out that it helps you kind of keep that there. And then you can do a follow-up, you know, find them on LinkedIn, find them on these things. So don't feel like you've got to accost them. You know, you can give your card. Maybe they give you one.
Sure.
If they do, great, put it in your pocket. And make a follow-up, not ask. Okay, this is what I think. I think you got to make a follow-up, and that's where I was going to go with this. I'm just going to go, I promise you, Laura, I'll get your question. So Jan, in that follow-up, I always think, you know, again, this isn't the time to ask. This is the time to relate, correct?
Great to meet you. Yeah, yeah.
And they also need to know you're interested in what they do. So how do you connect that? You know, how do you give them a little bit of information enough to have that dialogue, but also learn a little bit about them, because that also tells you down the road when you need to make an ask, you've got some things to connect them. But it is, and you also, the other thing I believe about is don't ask, is not only on that first follow-up, but also when you're sending a thank you. Don't ask.
Don't combine the two.
Same time you're doing a thank you.
Yeah. Great call.
Yeah.
Great call. I love that.
So
Thank you for thank you.
I'm gonna,
Yeah.
and again, Laura, I'm gonna go ahead and pop Lori's question here, because she's really just asking an opinion.
It's a good question, though.
I
like it,
Jan's
Lori.
thought on it.
Thank
So
you.
it's, you know, does anybody give their sponsors a certificate of thanks? We do a tax receipt letter, and large sponsors get a handwritten thank you. Do you think they would actually display the certificate?
My thought would be no.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
Not a Neil.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
Yeah.
I think that they may not ever do anything with it. Are they going to frame it up and put it up on the wall? Maybe not.
But they have.
but they have it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm,
And I'm going to tell you what happens is my wife keeps everything of this kind in a file. And we just did a remodel. So we were going through stuff and we pulled out and she pulled this deal and she starts going through it and we start talking about the organizations we've been a part of over the years and how that is. And let me tell you something, if we did, because the tax receipt's long filed, gone. The email's long been deleted. But that program document, that thing what you would have, that she would have, because she would keep it. My wife would keep it. She's not going to put it up on the wall, but I guarantee you she would keep it. That's the thing that people come back to because it draws them back into it. So I just want to encourage you, I think if you're thinking about trying it, I think it's the cheap gift that she's talking about.
Yeah.
It's
And
a
I-
certain,
Yeah.
And when I said no, my no was to no, I don't think they'd hang it up on the wall.
but I think that means I know I know you were thinking the same
Yeah.
thing probably.
But I would also say, how can you make that gift certificate a little more personal to what you do, what we do?
Yeah.
For example, one of the years we did one of the drawings from one of the children, and we made that into our picture, that like a certificate, and basically we copied it, and down at the bottom had that message of gratitude, and this is what you helped do. You
Awesome.
helped this child find safety. So instead of just a certificate, is there something related to the work that you do that you could tie into that certificate, so it doesn't look like something you could go to Office Depot and buy and just add a name to?
Good call. A little more branded,
Mhm.
attentive to the mission in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
what you were doing right then. Yeah, I love that. I think that's great.
It's something to kind of touch back to the heart, if that's possible.
I think that's
Oh
smart.
yeah.
Yeah, great feedback, Jen. Yeah. Good
Okay.
question, Lori. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Another call for questions, please. Of course.
Yeah.
We got about 15 more minutes, so please.
So I'm gonna take what you just said, what we've been talking about for nearly the entire time, and I'm gonna change it just a little. I'm gonna take it to the next part.
Okay.
So I had recently had somebody that runs a CEO of a nonprofit, a foundation, was going to have a meeting, with a donor, significant donor. Person they're very, very philanthropic, have a lot of money, and are very interested in that field. I know him personally, and I knew this, and she said, well, I was thinking, maybe I should just this first time, and she's met with him before, so it's not the first time. And so she's been doing this, got the relationship, and she said, he said he'd meet with me, and she goes, well, I'm wondering if I should probably just not ask him for anything. Well, this is what I told her, and I want to see what you think. Now, again, I have a little background information when I gave this advice, because I know him, know her, and what I said was, he's got plenty of friends, okay? He knows what you do. He understands that. He's into the mission. He's expecting for you to ask him to help.
Mm-hmm.
Don't disappoint him. Well, she did. She went and she asked him. He made a substantial gift. That's exactly why he was there, because he wanted to have a conversation, talk about what they were going to do, talk about what their plans, hear more stuff, and do that. And he made a significant gift. So my thought, and I knew in that case, but how would you say whenever you're going to go meet with somebody? Because sometimes, and I think there's a deal whenever you call somebody and you say, hey, we got our capital campaign going because I've been doing the deal, and Jan, I'd like to see if I can come by and visit with you. And he goes, yeah, sure. Come on by. He's expecting to be asked, that person, he or she is expecting for you to bring something to ask them for some money. To me, it's an automatic yes. If it's no, they're not going to talk to you. They're expecting it. It's just a matter of what the number's going to be.
Well, they're deliberate with their time. It's probably.
Well, that's what I mean, I don't know. And I reserve the right to be wrong, and nobody has to agree with me, but I just want to hear Jan's thought on that, because you've been doing it successfully for so long, and what you think, whenever those meetings come up and that time comes.
I think absolutely. And, that's not just a follow-up to meet somebody, that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
At them, I'm going to follow up. It's an intentional, hey, can I sit and visit with you? And I think you need to have in your mind and know how you want to verbalize the offer to be involved, time, talent, or treasure. There may be a specific ask you have in mind and right now that you need. that may not be where their mindset is. And maybe they want to be able to get involved. But if you have a way to be able to ask them to say, we need your support, and follow through with that, depending on their answers on where you go with that. If it's somebody you've already vetted, you know they've got the money, you know they're interested in what you do, I think you're missing a point if you don't have an ask planned to make. And don't minimize that ask. You might think, oh, I hate to ask them for that much money. You never insult somebody by asking them for more than what they give. If anything else, they think, oh, you think I've got more money than what I do. That's okay. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's not an insult. They're all
No,
going
not
to
at all.
be able to come back and say, well, I can't do that, but I could do this. And then build on it.
So how do you do that in a way that you know that you're asking for enough?
Well, usually
Or
we,
how do you do it so you leave it so you're able to do so? You know, we've got another friend of Trevor and I. Um, he went in to go make an ask. In his mind, he was wanting a $250,000 5-year commitment. You know, $50,000 a year. Walks in, the guy says, "Hey, look, I'm not going to be able to do what I thought I was going to do." Well, in his mind, Casey's
Oh,
mind,
wow.
he thought, okay, well, maybe it'll be 125, 25. The guy goes, "Look, I can't do what I wanted to do. We got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm going to do 100,000 this year. I guarantee 100 next year. And then if I can, I'll go up from that." So, you know, at least 100. So he got a 500,000 because he didn't say anything. He goes,
right,
"I'm glad I kept my mouth shut."
yes,
Knowing when to shut up. Yeah.
that's key, Trevor. Really,
Yeah.
it is. And regardless of the situation, when there's a silence, we always have this tendency to want to step in, and
There's
the
so much
loser's the
gold
person
in
who
that.
steps in, you know.
Yeah.
So learn really knowing when to be able to let them finish their processing their thought and how they're going to do that. And in the process, they may talk themselves into more than what they were actually going to give because you are silent, and they want to make sure they're filling that silence as well. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yes,
I
and
know
then
what I'm
also
trying to
because
say
you've
there. I'm not sure I verbalized it well.
no, you
No, it
did
makes
really
total
well, but
sense.
I also, your process, you probably also do something else where maybe their mind takes them to that next level, for instance, because you've done such a good job of explaining what the mission's going to be doing
Right.
right then and then over the next, 3, 5 years, your plan, right? You've done a really good job of articulating that and making sure they understand that, you know what I mean? And the work that you're trying to, and that's not lofty and a pipe dream and all these things, but actually like real work that you're doing so they can connect the dots on that from a dollar perspective. I think it's huge.
I
But
think
yeah,
the other part of that is you may go in and be asking for a $250,000 gift, and they say, well, I can't do that, but I could do 100. To be able to say, would you consider doing that over a multi-year gift?
lovely.
You know, you might not go in thinking a multi-year, you making it ask for something specific you're doing, but being able to go forward with that. And one of the things too, when you were talking capital campaigns, one of my probably the biggest ask I had made was at that point asking for $1 million gift. And I had someone with me. I also wanted this organization to do $100,000 legacy sponsor gift, which we recognize throughout the year. And the board member with me said, "Oh, no, no, no." It's like, no, I need their gift, but I also need their operational gift. And we asked for both and got both. So I got a $1 million gift and I got a $100,000 gift for operations. Don't be afraid to ask. The worst that can happen is they're going to tell you no. If you don't
Right.
ask, the answer's already no. So
Yeah. And no
Yeah.
means
ask
no right now
everything.
doesn't mean no forever. I want to backtrack just a little bit, Janice, touch on that point. And I don't want people to think, and I know that you're not approaching it this way. It's not a negotiation when you say, hey, the person, I think the illustration you just made is you are asking for 250 now. They said we can give 100. And then you immediately, okay, on your feet, thinking creatively, not as a negotiation tactic. Okay, would you be willing to guarantee, would you be willing to give the 100,000 for the next, say 3 years? So you're actually walking with more than the 250 that you asked for, but you're just being creative. And I just think folks don't necessarily realize that, or they feel the pressure or the fear or trepidation that this turns into a negotiation. It's not a negotiation, it's
Say
creative
yes.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, all they can do is say no.
Yeah.
They're not gonna shoot you or, chase you out of their office or their house.
Right.
It's a simple no, and be willing to accept that gracefully as well.
Yeah.
And know
Yeah.
it's not defeat. And no right now doesn't necessarily mean no, not next time.
No forever. Yeah. Yeah.
We've got about
Great.
11 minutes left. I got
Okay.
one more. Okay, she just said 10 minutes. I got
10.
one more
Sorry,
question that I
Billy.
want to ask, and I think this is the question that I think comes up a lot in when we're working with nonprofits, and it's the idea of we need to go for whatever the thing is. We need $50,000 because our elevator just broke and we don't have the budget for it. We got to go figure this out. And I'm making it up. Okay, I do know that they happen to have an elevator, but it does work.
Yeah.
The, but let's just say that something like that comes up, and people are like, okay, what are we going to do? What is where does your mind go when something like that comes up, where we got to go pull something, we got to pull a rabbit? Where does your mind go when you start thinking about who you can ask?
I immediately start thinking, who's been our longtime donors? Who do I trust? Who can I go to and ask for money? Uh, and I'll share probably, I don't know that I should share this. It's been many years ago, let me put it that way. We had some money that was given for a specific project. And we actually were doing better on that project than what we needed. But at that time, we went through some stuff that our cash flow was really, really tough, to the point I had a couple of payrolls I was really concerned about meeting. Obviously, this was in the very early years. And I went to the one donor. I mean, they'd given a $500,000 gift. And I went to them and said, I'm okay with this project. I'm raising what I need to. Would you let me reallocate your dollars? And it was a tough conversation. I had to give them, here's the nitty gritty of where we're at. We've got, we're great. We're stable as far as well, we didn't have investments at the time, but we had a lot of assets, but cash flow was really, really difficult. Now we have a line of credit. So if we've got grants that are coming in and they're not paid yet, we know they're going to if we had to take down a line of credit. But at that point, we had no backup. We had no reserves, anything. And there were only a few people I could go to. And this person I did, and they said yes. And we had some other further conversation, and they continued to support. So I think, again, that comes down to your relationships. If you have a friend and you have a need, which of your friends is going to most be able to help you with that need? If you know your donors, you know who you can go to.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely critical.
Well, and where I'm coming from, and you hit the nail on the head. These are people that, because a lot of times we start thinking in our capacity to give and not their capacity. Well,
Or
I know
if
that
they'll
I know
understand
that,
that. Yeah.
I know that, John and Mary Smith just gave us $100,000, and this comes up, but they've given us 100,000 last year and they gave us 100,000 year before that. Well, they care about our mission. They're invested heavily. They want us to succeed. Something like this comes up, they're the first person I want to go to. I mean, and I think that's the point you're making is, and I just can't emphasize that enough for everybody watching, whether you're watching on the recording or seeing it live on YouTube or right here with us right now.
Yeah.
Your biggest fans are the people you always want to look to first, because this is I remember this person who had significant capacity to give, and they're like, "Why didn't you ask me?"
I was just going to say
They
that. I
were
think these people
bothered. It was
you could
like he
argue
was
they'd be
upset.
upset. Yeah.
He was
Yes.
upset.
Yeah.
Why didn't you? Don't ever let money be the issue.
Yeah.
You
Isn't
know?
that wild? Yeah, people don't realize that. I was just going to say, I'd argue that if you didn't have that conversation with those folks about the payroll and not having the line of credit and what have you, that if they found out about that later, they would actually, they wouldn't stop giving, but they would be upset that you didn't call them.
Right. And
Yeah.
upset that we
Yeah.
were struggling and had to worry about that and didn't have where to go with it.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think about
Yeah.
it in our personal lives, many people, and I tell my husband this all the time. He hates to ask anybody for help.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
have a son-in-law that, would help you, I know, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And yeah, my husband never wants to reach out and ask for help.
Yeah.
But if he needs something, has quick to want to be there. We don't want to have to ask for help, but we love to give it most oftentimes. So think of that of your donors. You hate why it's hard for you to go ask them. You're giving them an opportunity to feel like a champion because they got to help you.
Yeah.
I think in the process, one other thing I want to say before we leave is, I think we have to be intentional also in all of our transactions to be transparent and ethical.
Yep.
I got about a $65,000 gift about a year ago over, we had to take down a building and got another project, and they said, well, will that cost be covered in that project? And I said, in reality, I could probably figure out a way to include that in there. But ethically, it would have already been done. And so my answer would be no, I would not. Personally, I would not be able, I would not be able to, our organization ask. I think it would be unethical. And they left and called me back the next day and said, write me a letter and ask me for $60,000. Paid for the building.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, I got to actually verbalize it, but I think we need to make sure our donors know that we're being transparent with our work. Some people don't like the Open Meeting Act. As an agency, we are under it through the AG's office. I feel like that holds us to a higher standard. And whether we were required to operate under that transparency, I believe we should operate under that transparency always. And that makes a difference with donors.
That's huge equity. Can I ask a selfish question? There doesn't have to be necessarily a right or a wrong answer, Jan, but I'm really fascinated by this topic. I'm fascinated with how it bleeds into your personal life. Not you personally, but like just a way of treating people and how you could treat people in your personal life the same way you treat major donors or small donors, just the whole nut, and how it just like there's so much symmetry there. Jason, I kind of realized this, but meeting Jason in my 30s and then learning so much over time, he taught me, I don't think it was like he just said it to me and shook me by the shoulders one day, but he's taught me the greatest gift that we can give anyone is our time. Would you agree with that when you're building these relationships with the folks that I know you said, hey, we'll go get a cup of coffee. I'll meet you. I'll rip the Band-Aid off and go to the chamber event and all this stuff. But just because you've had such a prolific career and we think we know you're an expert in the space. But I mean, like if I could paint you into a corner and say, what was the greatest thing that you were able to offer these folks to build these relationships? Would it be gratitude? Would it be time? Is there something that just speaks to you and just shouts at you about that kind of stuff?
I think it's the personal contact. And I just had a donor not too long ago that was having coffee with me. Actually, it was one I was meeting to let them know I was retiring. I wanted the donors to know before it went public.
Yeah.
And while I was there, the phone rang and he didn't answer it. And he said, you're one of the people when the phone rings and it says it's your name, I answer it because I see you. And that was probably one of the greatest compliments that he could have given to me. But it's because I've taken the time to have the coffee. This is what's going on. This is anything you want to get involved in. Is there a way our agency could assist you or I could assist you? I mean, I always want to tell people if there's something I can ever do personally, whether that's a legislator or a donor or a volunteer, how can I help you too? And we never know what they may need. And sometimes just having that coffee makes the difference.
Awesome. That's awesome. Great. Yeah.
All right. Well,
we love this
Jan,
stuff,
I
Jan.
can't thank you enough. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on and sharing with this time with us. It means a lot to me personally. Trevor as
Me
well.
too. Me
You guys
too.
are a great client, but you're fun to work with.
Thank you.
And let me just tell
Yeah, it's time for you to write your book now. Sorry, Jan.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. It's
Sorry.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Here's
Okay,
here's a nudge.
let's go.
Yes,
Here
I'm
we go.
retiring. I'm still around. So if I can ever help in any way, it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be on a webinar. You can holler at me.
I do
I
know that.
appreciate
I do
you.
know that.
Appreciate
So
you so much.
we're going to give something away. So we've got a winner, Marissa.
Okay.
Marissa's our winner. So I'm going to
Okay,
share my
cool.
screen, and then Marissa, you're going to get to come
Hey, Marissa.
on. Here the deal is, and what
Well,
is
don't
that?
say wow yet. We don't know how much it is, Marissa. No.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Okay.
Congrats.
All
Okay,
right,
here comes
Marissa.
there
Okay, you got to
go.
push the spin. Push it a little harder. There it goes.
It's a
All
green
right.
wheel because of money, not because those
Yeah.
are split pea soup or company colors or anything like that.
All
Cool.
right,
What do we
Marissa,
got?
winner, $300 in HGA bucks.
Far
You can do
out.
anything to help raise more money in your next event. So we'll get an email out for that. We're going to send a recording of this out to everybody.
Yep.
everybody who registered to come on. Please do us a favor. Would you share this with somebody? If you got anything out today, would you please share this with another nonprofit professional, somebody that could benefit out of this? We'd love to be able to get this out there. So every Thursday at noon, and we're so thankful that you use some of your precious time to come spend it with us. Jan,
And thankful for you, Jan.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
awesome.
so
Appreciate
much.
you. Congratulations. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
See you later.
All right. Thank you, brother.
See
Have a
everybody.
great
Have a
afternoon.
wonderful